Hi, welcome to More to Come, PW Comics World's weekly, well, kind of semi-regular podcast,
Bi-weekly.
bi-weekly, sort of regular, ongoing podcast of comics and graphic novel news. I'm Heidi MacDonald. I'm the editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com and KComicsBeat at kcomicsbeat.com. And you can find us on most social media platforms at PW Comics World, including Blue Sky.
And I'm Kate Fitzsimons. I'm the podcast producer, and you can find us on Tumblr at PW Comics World. And you can also find us on publishersweekly.com/comics.
Hi, and I'm Christian Holub, and you can find me by that name on Twitter and Blue Sky and stuff. Been covering comics for a while, but just used to do it at Entertainment Weekly, and now I'm running the Fanatic newsletter for Publishers Weekly in the great tradition of Calvin Reed and this podcast.
Well, welcome,
Welcome
Christian.
aboard.
Welcome aboard. And
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, so you can find us on other platforms. You can leave us a note because we'd love to hear from our listeners. But listeners or watchers, you can also find us on YouTube at Publishers Weekly channel. Smash that like button. Yeah. As you know, Kate and I have been carrying on, the excitement of our gala 700th episode back in October and New York Comic Con was so taxing that we kind of have been on a little bit of a break, and we wanted to bring in guest hosts. And so Christian, who, as we noted, is editing the Fanatic for Publishers Weekly, is our first guest host. And very big props, Christian, because you jumped in at a moment's notice. Because this week on More to Come, we have
So much news.
Say, you're on the list. We have so much to cover because we haven't done it for a while. So this week on More to Come, we have Marvel layoffs, David Gabriel gone, Sora deal disintegrates, boom, restructures, Global gets 13 million, manga readership is down on digital, convention news galore, and a look at the creators, the atmosphere, the climate, the creators' climate, including the return of the superstar artist. So let's kick things off with the big news. Disney corporate had huge layoffs. They let off 1,000 people, which is really only 0.5 of their workforce. But we're told there's more to come.
It's more significant of Marvel's workforce.
Well, yes. And we're also told it's more to come. Like basically Disney has a new CEO. And they are, first thing you got to do is take people's jobs away. It's the American way. So most significantly was that they cut, from a corporate standpoint, the most significant was they laid off their entire creative department, their visual department for the MCU, saying, well, we're really cutting back on that. And, saying, well, we'll bring them back on a freelance basis. But you know what that means? It means AI. It means they're going to use crappy AI to do their concept art. And that's going to suck.
I don't know that it'll all be AI, but it'll definitely be bad contracts and with using AI as the threat behind it. Oh, if you don't want to do it for this much money, I could do it for $200 with AI.
Yeah, exactly.
Thing where it's like you fire these people, whatever wages they were making, and now it's like instead of being in charge of visual development, you just edit the AI, like make the shit the AI spits out look a little better or whatever. And you do it for freelance rates instead of a salary.
Well, I mean, my guess is that Disney has a little more professional pride. I think the AI is a threat. I think they would ideally like to be able to use human artists for most of it, but pay them less because they're freelance.
Right.
And they can always use AI as their backup if they have to.
But I think what it really says is, and I want to circle back to this after I talk about Marvel Comics, is that the MCU, I think their run has, I think it's ready to take a little break. Is how I read the tea leaves on that. I don't know, Christian. What's your take on that?
Yeah, definitely feels like MCU's in a weird space. They had 3 movies last year after mostly taking 2024 off. And it was quite a mixed bag, with Captain America and Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four. I think none of those were quite like what they needed to be to like restore um Marvel to what it was, where each of those remember, like it's so easy to think back to 2019 when any movie Marvel made would make $1 billion worldwide. And that moment's gone. It's over, for various reasons. A
One
lot.
of them being 3 movies in a year.
Exactly. And, there's an interesting thing, only semi-related to this, but I just want to say it as something of an elder millennial. Kind of been thinking about seeing some of these observations that, like, when the first Iron Man came out, I was 16 years old, and I was the prime audience for it. And from that following decade through Endgame, I was in high school, I was in college. I didn't have a lot going on in my life, other words, than to drop everything and watch whatever MCU movie came out. I would remember them all, and I'm saying but I'm kind of
Well, you're talking about yourself, but you're using yourself as a test case.
yeah, I think I'm using myself as an example of maybe a generational cohort or like an audience cohort
Yeah.
that um just is at a different stage of our lives now, at a different stage of franchise storytelling. We're not just going to drop everything and go see every MCU movie, especially when the plotting and stuff is so much more diffuse now, and you can get a lot of it on Disney Plus. Um,
Yeah.
and so I guess we'll see what happens with Avengers this year, but
Well,
Well,
but
kind
but
of accept
also with
that.
Heidi, you go, then I'll go.
oh yeah, well, I was just going to say, I've actually had this conversation with quite a few people as we were talking about these layoffs because, people aren't even sure that Doomsday, the big, return of the Avengers and the Russo brothers, how it's going to fare against Dune
Yeah,
3. And because I was saying, the kids today, Zendaya and Timmy Chalamet are like their highest Q ratings. They are the actual superstars to younger moviegoers, who are the age that Christian was when he went to see Iron Man.
exactly.
And people who are, you were a teenager. I mean, I went to those movies. There was a lot of 20 somethings. They're pushing 40. They have
Yeah,
kids. They're
right.
well into their child raising years.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
Exactly.
it
but
is.
The
but
people who were as old as I was when Iron Man came out, people who were that old when the first Dune came out a couple years ago, way more invested in that. It's way fresher. You only have to have seen two movies to understand Dune 3,
Yeah.
whereas this Doomsday seems to be based not just on the entire continuity of the MCU, but even Marvel movies before the MCU, because of course they're bringing back Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen and
yeah.
all that stuff.
Well, I mean, I think what you're saying about diffuse plotting
Yeah,
also plays in because series can pull, I mean, MCU type series can bring in kids along the way, but they haven't been.
right.
They haven't been lately. They had been up until a point.
Yeah.
And I feel like the momentum really went away after Endgame.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, we also had a pandemic too.
we had a
So
pandemic. That didn't
yeah.
help the
So
momentum. But also, I always felt like they were rushing toward Endgame a little too fast. And they
Mhm.
burned off a lot of characters and a lot of things they could have done with them in order to be like, oh, here's the big boom. And okay, now you have the big boom, and now what? You've got a lot
Mhm.
of dead characters.
Mhm.
yeah. Well, to segue a little bit into what this means for our end of the world. So Marvel Comics also had layoffs, and the
Right.
most significant of which was David Gabriel, who was their senior VP of Sales, Marketing, and Print. And David was absolutely one of the most powerful people at Marvel. Marvel, the number one publisher in comics. He had been there for 23 years. He was the head of sales. Anecdotally, he had so much influence on what they published, how they published it, the blind bags, the most recent variant covers, the limit like the way almost all Marvel comics are 10-issue limited series now, and
Mhm.
they end up actually being 5-issue limited series in a lot of
Right.
cases. And he had a lot of influence on what was published at Marvel, and so much of that. And now, Christian, did you ever deal with David?
I never interacted with him. I loved the piece you wrote, Heidi, about him on the beat. I think it's worth talking a little bit about that just because people are listening. Obviously, you're listening to a PW podcast, so we're getting into the weeds. But if the title like SVP of marketing and sales, if that doesn't mean a lot to you, some of Gabriel's specific accomplishments, I think, mean a lot to anybody who's read Marvel
Mm,
comics in the past 10 or 20 years. My comic bookshelf in the other room is full of these big omnibus editions and stuff, which I understand he was a huge part of pushing that,
right.
a big part of moving away from the old way of collecting old Marvel comics when I was a kid, which was these essential editions that were like black and white reprints and stuff. Reading your piece, reading some of the other tributes, writings about him around the online since this news broke. It's like, oh, he was a big part of ending that. He was a big
Mm.
part of pushing these omnibuses. I think there's almost too much to get into. You were listing some of maybe the stuff they've done in the last couple years that haven't been as successful as that.
Yeah.
Uh,
So these are the omnibuses. I mean, not the omnibuses. These are the black and whites as opposed to the
Yes.
omnibuses. If you've never seen
Right.
one, readers, this
right.
is what we're
That's
talking.
that's what if you wanted to read Stan Lee comics or whatever in the 2000s, that's how you had to get them instead of these so he changed a lot of how the comics literally are packaged and presented to you. So even if you don't recognize this guy's name, you don't know what a senior vice president means at Disney, trust, he had a big impact on how we all read Marvel comics.
He did. He did. And uh, I mean, we had a very, uh, on again, off again relationship,
Sure.
professional relationship, I have to say. But sometimes David would tell me, like, Heidi, you're the only person who actually understood what the story was,
Mm.
and then he would give me some really great insights. And then other times I would ask him a direct question that I knew the answer to, and he would completely blank on the answer. It's like, oh, really? I didn't hear that. So David was quite a complicated figure.
Yeah.
I think he has come in for a lot of criticism of late. And when I went to Comics Pro a couple of months ago now, he would give the retailer presentations, and everyone said he was phoning it in. Maybe he knew he was on the way out. I mean, he got up there.
That's
He
what you
didn't.
have to wonder, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even tell me to leave the room. Normally, he will say, call me out personally, no matter where I'm sitting. He's like, Heidi, you need to leave the room. And then not really do anything that wasn't already known. So, we had a cat and mouse game thing going on over the years. It was kind of funny.
So
But
you were saying about some of the criticism he's come in for. Let's talk about
yes.
that.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, it's funny you mentioned the omnibuses because
Hmm.
that was a great program. But my understanding is that they're kind of this, hot collectible where people have to order them for fear that they'll won't be in print and like you got to get it while it's hot. The
They're
Yeah.
biggest,
expensive and nobody wants to have them like going unsold, so they don't print any more than they think they need to.
yeah. And
Yeah.
they're, yeah. So the biggest criticism, and we have mentioned it here on Warcom over the years many times, is that Marvel did not have a very good backlist for their trade
Yes.
publications. And
Yes.
retailers complain and complain. So I reached out to a few of my favorite retailers. Also, some of them reached out to me. And I can tell you, like, I think there was a lot of respect for David. Just anyone who's been there 23 years, you're going to have a lot of personal relationships. But there was also like, why didn't he get the trade program going?
Yeah.
And they have been trying for the last 2 years with their compact editions. DC calls them compact edition. I think Marvel calls them treasury or something,
Yeah,
special.
yeah.
They
But
had to
the thing
give it a
is, you
different.
don't see them like you see the DC ones.
Right. Yeah, I
You see
only
the
see
DC ones everywhere. I've
yeah,
hardly
the
seen the Marvel
ports.
ones at all.
Yeah.
How funny.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
And I
So
wonder if part of the like there was almost with the backlist and stuff, there was maybe almost too much innovation going on at certain points because even for me it did get into a part where it was like oh, you're waiting for there were different editions. There were paperback types that were like Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman, the complete collection, and maybe you're tracking down like those volumes. And then in the middle of you tracking those down, suddenly instead of doing another print run of those, they start a new run of hardback omnibuses of Hickman Fantastic Four, and some stuff would fall through the cracks. Like,
yeah, they weren't
uh,
great with consistency.
yeah, right. So almost instead of maintaining the consistent backlist, it was almost like um, just doing new editions. Oh, that run of paperbacks is over. Now we're
Yes.
them in hardcover.
Yes.
But they wouldn't
And
even
Vic,
necessarily finish the run of paperbacks.
Right, exactly.
It's like they don't understand that comic book fans are completists and are
Right.
like, no, you mean I can't even get the whole run looking similar?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Marvel!
I spent
that-
so yeah, there were a couple that I was like, I'm missing one volume of this like 3 volume paperback set, and I gotta find it on eBay or something like that.
But that's what but like I think it was very much based on this, oh, gotta have it now. I gotta get this limited edition.
Right.
And not the fact that every day, Stan Lee actually said, somebody walks into a comic shop or into a bookstore and is like, hey, I don't read Marvel Comics. Where should I start? And, if you're going in, you've heard of Watchmen, you've heard of Dark Knight Returns, you've heard of
Which are terrible first
I,
comics.
they are, but they seem to work.
Right.
I mean, just
Depends
I
on the
know
person.
I shouldn't. He is discredited, but for a long time, the Sandman was one of them, and
Right.
all of these books that are like people. Hey, I've heard about that. I wonder if I should read it. And you walk into the bookstore or the comic shop, and they're sitting on the shelf in print are all these books. You could not do that with Marvel. Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
And they even have been outsourcing all of their perennials to Abrams Comics Arts. Abrams is doing an Alex Ross graphic novel later this year.
Yep.
They're going to do a way better job at it than Marvel would have done, and it's going to sell a gazillion copies. But so I think this criticism of David is very valid.
It is, but my question is, why now? Right? Like, David has been bad. Well, maybe okay, let's put it this way. Marvel, we don't know his connection to it exactly, but he's clearly involved in some way, has been bad on backlist for eternity, right? Why now?
Well, here's the bigger picture on why we were talking about the MCU earlier. Okay. I mean, Marvel's been the #1 publisher for decades. But DC over the last year, we don't have sales charts anymore, but we know Absolute was a huge success. They might not be beating Marvel in unit sales, but they certainly have the top 10 and they're way hotter. And they might even be beating them in volume. Absolute Batman is doing so well. So Marvel has been a little bit in decline, or a lot in decline. A lot of people complained about their kind of stagnant storylines as well. And
I'm going to be honest, I haven't heard significant buzz from my comics loving friends who like Marvel and like comic Marvel characters about any particular storyline except for Mary Jane's horrible other boyfriend. Like, literally the only thing I hear about Marvel comics other than like, oh yeah, it's there, is like, Paul. I hate Paul. That's it. Like, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign.
I even feel like I'm hearing about Absolute from friends of mine who haven't read comics since we were in high school, like, and they're so pumped about it. And I have tried to be like, oh, you like this? You like this thing about like superheroes in a recognizable modern world with like our same messed up politics and stuff that they're fighting against. Well, the Ultimates is like on that same level, and it's so good, and it just like I don't know, it's not hitting them the same way, or they're not hearing about it when they're hearing about wherever they're hearing about Absolute. And so you see these two lines that are trying something similar, which is a refashion the recognizable icons so that a new reader can get in, make it
it's
kind
not
of
helped by the fact that they don't have different enough branding than the previously existing Ultimates, which was a hot mess. And, and like 15 years ago.
Right.
So I think people see it and they're like, oh, more Ultimates? Who wants that? Right? They don't know that it's something totally different.
Well, they're ending it.
Well, that's why.
Well, yeah, exactly. That too. It's like going to be over in like a month.
Well, I've heard different reasons for the Ultimates ending. Yes. And one of them was the idea that they were ending it so that they could bring it back whenever DC was doing something big and be like, hey, we're doing the Ultimates again. We're re-Ultimizing, which is a little bit paranoid conspiracy theory, but kind of the way things might be done. And, I think just
come up with a new name, Marvel. Come up with a new name.
I mean, or stick with
so that
it,
you can distinguish between them if you're going to do something new.
I think the main failing of Ultimates is the creative teams. I mean, I think that Jonathan Hickman is fantastic, obviously, and he's done probably the best work at Marvel in this decade. But he hasn't continued with the Ultimates line. And I mean, I don't really follow all the internet things that happen at Marvel, but I know there's been some question marks about that. And the bigger thing that I was getting to is the larger picture. I feel like Marvel Comics is in part of Disney and must show break even or profits every year because stockholders demand that. And that is behind a lot of the things that they've done over the years. But Kevin Feige, the head of the MCU, head of Marvel Studios, was very friendly with Dan Buckley, who runs Marvel, with a lot of the people at Marvel, and loved Marvel Comics. Kevin Feige was a huge supporter of Marvel Comics as it existed, as a separate actual thing that was a publisher. Now, I don't know that Kevin Feige quite has the
Yeah.
big
Now that he's not
swing.
making like $1 billion 5 times a
Well,
year for that.
and honestly, if Disney's seeing Marvel unofficially as all one unit, as long as the movies were making all the money in the world, they were more willing to ignore whatever the comics were doing. But
Yeah.
now that they're not, now they're taking a second look. And I will say these are two separate things. Do I think they should have fired all those people? No. Do I think it's not the worst thing to take a look at Marvel and say, why aren't we hitting with people? What can we do different? Yeah, I don't think that's the worst thing. They should do that. I wish they didn't fire all these people unnecessarily and maybe farm some stuff out to AI or threaten to. But like Marvel, all publishers occasionally need a rethinking. They need to look at what they're doing and see what's working and see what's not working.
All things need a reboot, like more to come.
Or even if it's not a full reboot, it's okay, let's do a reevaluation. Let's try something new. And I don't think that's the worst thing for Marvel. But speaking of AI and speaking of money, another source of money that they're not going to be getting is their Sora deal no longer applies because Sora, the AI video creator that they had licensed out a bunch of their characters to, has shut down only like 4 months after they made this deal. And Sora was supposed to be paying them a lot of money in stock or, things like that for using their characters. And now, well, that deal is no longer on because there's no Sora.
Well, Sora canceled, which was a big mystery, but I
don't think it's a mystery.
Well, I mean, why did they shut it down? I didn't have time to figure out why they shut it down.
Sora costs lots of money and it wasn't making any. It costs even more money than all the other things AI does.
What do you mean? I thought AI was the future. They only gave it like 3 months to rip off everybody's ideas. I don't know.
No, Sora's been around for a number of years. And Sora, well, we won't get into why it's not amazing, but even though it was supposedly the future, it costs much more to run AI video creation than any of the other things AI does, because video is just very resource intense. And so it doesn't surprise me that if they're cutting somewhere in order to try to lose less money, the video creation would be where they do it.
Yeah, I think also OpenAI is having its own struggles that are affecting that. I think, I don't know about you guys, but when Disney made this deal with Sora, even I, who's just like a guy, was like, that's a dumb idea. I don't know why you would do that.
Admittedly,
you know what people use AI for? Like, you want your characters used. It just didn't make any sense to me, except in this just like magical thinking that dominates all the corporate approach to AI, which is just like, oh, they've invented the Star Trek computer, like they've invented this magic machine.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. And there's a shading, I guess, to which I think are some other, did this big kind of corporate deal go sideways, and now some people a little further down the food chain are kind of paying the price.
I mean, I will admit here, Christian, which you probably don't know unless you've listened to very specific more to come episodes. I am the resident AI hater.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I have spent way too much time complaining about how it's all going to burn down and don't invest any money in it, because the current generation of AI is not sustainable, and
All right.
whatever it moves on to is not going to be this. But
Right.
moving on. But yeah, it's not
well,
good for Disney.
anyway, listen,
They were
we
counting
have
on that cash.
So look, I think there was absolutely going to be more to come on this story of where Marvel is. Are they going to reboot? Retailers have been begging them to really rethink their line and to really, really, really relaunch, not just do a new number one every five months.
Yeah,
We're so burnt out on that.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
everyone is burnt out. So we don't know. Is this going to be we don't know. There's going to be more to come, but we have so much news to cover. We have to move on.
We could talk about this longer on another week. We would, but this week we've got so much coming at us that.
Could I just do one more thing
please.
before we move on? I just want to shout out, David Gabriel, the biggest name. But I did just want to shout out the great Tim Chang, who was executive director of communications at Marvel. He was in charge of basically all Marvel Comics PR. Basically, anytime I've written a story about Marvel Comics over the past 10 years, it's gone through him in some way. And so I just wanted to shout him out. I think, like, Kate, some of what you're saying, like, how is Disney kind of thinking about this? Oh, Marvel needs a revamp. It's not doing well enough. I wonder if some corporate people are also like, what do we need Marvel PR for? Everybody knows Marvel. Like, everybody knows what the comics. The amount of work I saw Tim do over the years. If they think it's so easy to wrangle comics writers and artists, and get them connected with journalists, get them looped into interesting stories or pitches or whatever. They think it's so easy. I'd like to see them try.
Meanwhile, they've put out an ad for wanting to hire talent management people.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. Well, they do.
It's
that's
like
a very
you fired all these people and none of them could have done that job.
Right.
Well, this is a very important. Yeah. I mean, that's it. They could have, they also laid off 3 assistant editors. There's actually a lot more layoffs, unfortunately. I don't know the names, and it's not. This was a corporate mandate, and it's.
We're not going to do a Roll of the Dead. This is
but
not
look,
the Vietnam War memorial.
There is much more to come on this story, but let's move on because we can talk about that. But yes, thank you for calling out Tim Chang. He did a great job, and thank you so much, Tim, for all your help over the years. Hey, look, Boom also restructured but they went further. They laid off a few people, and then they were like, "Hey, we're doing this other." So Boom was required by PRH a couple years ago. They just laid off 1 editor, and they also laid off their PR person. So that seems to be the thing that people are doing this week. But then they kind of announced that people like Mike Kelly, the publisher, and I'm going to blank completely on his name, but some of the other people within their, like Josh Hayes, who is their sales marketing VP, were going to be integrated more in PRH worldwide, which I'm probably also messing up. I should have looked at the story because it was so long ago that I wrote it, but within the parent imprint at PRH. So kind of none of the 1 editor was laid off. They didn't really talk about editorial, but if you look at your Boom emails lately, they're only putting out like 2 books a week. I mean, their output has been way slowed down. So, I mean, I didn't really get a spin on this, but I don't know.
That's not the worst thing. For a while, they were putting out more comics than I really thought. I was like, where's the market? This seems like this is not sustainable. So it doesn't surprise me that they might be like slowing down their production a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, I love Boom Comics, but
I just think it's interesting that this obviously is happening the same time as the Disney stuff, or like it's just clearly we're seeing similar ripple effects across the industry and across other industries. I don't know. It's just something.
Well, we're kind of at the beginning of con season.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's why, right? Like I
don't think it has anything to do with con season. But,
what do you think it is, Heidi?
Well, I think we're at the beginning of Hollywood restructuring. I think we're just living in chaotic times where, the Straits of Hormuz just closed down, and now we have an oil crisis, and then tariffs. Yes, tariffs. No, I mean and what if the tactic is to disrupt people with confusion, it's working. And who would want to do that? I don't know. But yeah, you're going to destroy the global economy eventually because nobody can pay attention to what's going on.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I'm just looking at my story, and yes, it's Random House World is the overall group that a lot of the Bloom personnel have been kind of absorbed by. So we'll see. Definitely more to come there as part of this chaotic and uncertain times.
Yeah.
Well, meanwhile, one company is doing pretty well. GlobalComix, a digital platform for comics that we've talked about quite a bit here over the years. They just got a nice $13 million infusion from like 7 Points, which I believe is owned by Steve Cohen, who is also the owner of the Mets. So that begins with M, and that rhymes with N, and that means no wins. But they are, I don't know. Steve Cohen Venture is happy for this Mets fan right now. But anyway, they got $13 million, and they look. If you're a tech company, you got to use the two little letters A and I in any
Right.
because that's why
Yeah.
people give you money now.
We've
And
noticed on a number of comics related businesses that have a tech element that they mention AI at some point in their pitch, but you never actually see it once the thing comes out.
Right. Speaking of being confused, one of the things that's hard to track about AI is how much like pre-existing tech or pre-existing stuff is just being rebranded as AI, like under this understanding that that's the only thing Wall Street cares about. Like you even see it with Hollywood, some of the de-aging, some of the stuff, some of that stuff they were already doing like back in
Yeah, and
20,
it's
but now they're
it's
calling it AI.
right. And it is AI in a certain sense, but not
Right.
in the
I
LLM sense. It's not
exactly.
LLM.
Right, exactly. It
yeah,
existed
but I mean,
before
but I
ChatGPT and stuff, but now
but I
it's
mean, we see you, we hear you using the buzzwords, we see you.
yeah, exactly.
And so Global used AI as a buzzword, and then they also acquired a new. Now again, I like this episode is so jam packed. I haven't even had time to absorb all of the stories that we're covering. But they acquired a smaller digital platform that does do kind of AI translation. And so the community was in uproar. Are they going to start using AI to translate the comics? Are they going to start using AI in general? They did do a Discord chat. I watched part of it, and their new CEO, Henrik Rorberg, kind of disputed that. He said, "Look, we're just using it for the rough translation." Which, look, everybody does that. Every time you're using the little translation app on your phone, it's AI, peeps. I got news for you.
But there's a difference between doing that and
Right,
then
right.
having that be the translation that is
Well,
available,
yes,
period, the end.
absolutely. And they said that they're just doing it as a rough pass. They're not, humans are going to take over then. And, I mean, that's not ideal, but for smaller companies, I mean, look, I mean, I use AI trans transcripts. I mean,
Describing
everybody does. Everybody uses AI for transcription. So, I mean, it's a
kind of the
useful
most
tool.
positive use case I know of
At,
it.
at, right. And
But transcription and translation are different things. And it's one thing to
Right, right.
absolutely.
translate for personal use, and it's another
Yes.
thing to sell an AI translation. And I
So
think
they
that's where
put
a lot of the negative feelings come
so
from.
they right and so they said that what this would do would be, say, to allow, if you were collaborating globally, this program would allow, or this kind of more of a platform, more of a like a, I would say, a project management platform, would allow you to translate different languages so you could collaborate globally. So they gave it a spin that it was not the bad AI. It was more just AI as a tool. But
Yeah.
suspicions remain. I will say one thing. Everybody's like, hey, $13 million. The tech world, that doesn't go anywhere. Okay. Developing websites is super duper expensive. So don't
Mm.
be expecting global to, like, fly you out to an island.
No. But at the other hand, like the kind of tech that comics tech is a lot cheaper than a lot of other kinds of tech. And so while 13 million does not mean caviar parties, it does mean keeping the app up and going for a while, which is
Oh,
worthwhile.
I mean, I don't think that the fact that it's a comics app actually, I would say just developers make lots of money, whether it's comics or anything else.
Well,
So,
yes, but what I meant is the amount of development needed, right? Like an app is something that is already well-trodden territory. This is not like you're trying to invent the mobile pizza oven,
Hmm.
which
Yeah, yeah,
ended
that's true.
in a ghost kitchen business instead, right?
Ghost
Like
kitchens.
Wonder, check it out. It's delicious,
Uh,
but it's not a pizza van. Um,
right.
so what I'm saying
Anyway,
is that relatively speaking, it's an achievable, affordable process.
yes. Well, we lost Christian. Hopefully, he'll be back in a minute. Meanwhile, Kate, you were talking over in Japan. Digital readership is a hot topic.
Yes. So one thing before I go into this, you have to understand about the uh, Japanese manga market
Hmm.
is that there are a lot of secondary readership streams and income streams for paper manga in Japan than there are for paper comics in the United States. There are a lot
Mhm.
of manga cafes, there are a lot of rental services, and so basically younger readerships or readerships who are trying new things or readerships who have less money to spend will be able to legally and financially contribute to this comic without paying full price because
Mm.
all these, and it'll help the publishers well because they'll be selling all these copies to all these cafes all over the country. That doesn't work with digital. So some
Yeah.
studies coming out, I want to get my numbers right here, give me a sec, are suggesting that this is becoming a problem when some of the smaller comics that are not getting into print anymore, that are living primarily in digital, at least before collection, are not necessarily making it to the younger readership who are the target audience for some of these comics. So
Mhm.
Mm.
1 minute, let me.
Yeah, this was a super hot topic on Twitter of all places. It was, the discourse. There was some really long pieces, some think pieces coming out, and definitely something that people were concerned about.
Yeah, because you need to have your continuing younger generation. And also, it says that maybe the publishers weren't thinking about that quadrant of the market, including those cafes, which are a huge business in Japan. So yeah, uh, a Japanese publishing industry researcher, Ichisi Iida, did a column online uh, in Japanese, but it's been translated by um, some American websites, including Automaton Media, um, that in the 80s, middle school students were reading about 10 magazines per month. And in 2025, that drops to about an average of one. And the proportion of readers who are not reading any manga magazines at all among middle schoolers, sort of the target age group for a lot of these comics, is 77%, which is huge for Japan. Um,
Wow, a huge decline.
Using data from the Japan School Library Association, and the Benesse Educational Research Development Institute, and Tokyo University, Ida is concluding that manga readership among children and teenagers is declining both physical publication and digital form because the digital form is expensive for a kid, right? You can get, they were saying that physical manga is more popular than digital manga for children and teenagers. Um, between, but the problem is that a lot of things are coming out on manga apps and kids just don't have the money. And that this is
Yeah.
contributing
Um,
to a lesser percentage of manga purchases, including those aimed at teenagers, being purchased by teenagers.
is it that the readership of the percentage of digital readership in Japan of manga has gone way up, right? So the fact that,
And a lot of things are only available in digital, at least before they're collected.
That sounds
right,
like
but is the digital price comparable to the print price though?
Well, they are if you're buying it, right? But there are all these channels through which Japan,
I see.
you go to the
can
manga
rent.
cafe, you go to all these different youth-oriented businesses where you buy a cup of tea or hot chocolate or a cookie, or you give them a couple bucks and you can read a bunch of comics. And then all those little businesses across Japan, and they're famous, they're a huge business there. It's like a form of fast food business almost that you see everywhere. They buy manga, and that doesn't work for digital. And so for an adult who's buying their own comics, who doesn't have time to hang out at a manga cafe, like paying for the digital is fine. You don't care. It's the same price, whatever. Your kid or teenager, suddenly everything's more expensive. And you're like,
yeah. Well, I mean, this is a huge concern that I know Japanese publishers. I mean, I see this via LinkedIn. I don't, follow it as closely as our colleague Deb Aoki does, obviously, but I just see lots of alarm bells ringing, and like concern are the young kids, and I think some of it is also a little bit content based. Like there hasn't been a big hit like Naruto in a while. I mean, I know Naruto came out, but like Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen, so they're a little bit concerned that we
Chainsaw Man.
Chainsaw Man, which just ended abruptly,
which ended,
shocked people. But I would poo-poo that. I mean, there will always be new hits because they have a system set up to create new hits, and if they can't create new hits, maybe there's a few years, sure, but there's a lot of creativity there.
And I mean, this is a little off topic, but not really. Given that scandal that came out last month about how it turns out that like editors at a major shoujo publication were destroying the careers of major shoujo creators, so that after their first hit, they couldn't come out with a new one because they're like, if you don't sign our terrible contract,
oh boy,
for your next book, and you get a new contract with somebody else, we won't publish your old book and you won't get the royalties for it. It's like you wonder how many careers have been destroyed that way by that corporate culture. I hope that that's falling by the wayside, because that certainly, like what this is showing, like as things go down and there's no hit, is like you've got to have the content. It's like what Marvel's experiencing now. Like, no amount of marketing will make up for having a book people want to read.
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
I just hear like, just my little thought on this is I'm almost just hearing like horror movie music in my head as I hear about Japanese comics becoming more like American comics, or like American, like these problems, like, oh, young people aren't reading this product that's technically for young people. That's something.
Yeah, that's such a bad sign. Whenever you hear that, you're like, uh-oh, Kill Bill sirens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
And just to tie this back into what we're saying, I mean, the MCU is the biggest thing, the most successful franchise for a long time, and now we're in the anime era here in the United States. Absolutely, like anime is the drive, the hottest thing going. Globally,
and also it's because anime is the production of an entire country,
right?
And MCU is just one franchise, a beautiful franchise, but not
absolutely.
So they're kind of fighting against entropy. I'm not saying MCU can't win for a while, but like you are, after all, one franchise.
Yeah.
Look, and the words of my good friend Bill Bailey, nothing lasts forever but the cold November rain. Okay. So anyway,
they just have to rethink some things, and both these industries should know that you can't take young people's interest for granted.
For sure. All right. Well, you know what? I want to move on because we still have tons of things to go on. Some con news. Well, boy, I'm going to curtail this, but basically this weekend We have BookCon here in New York. A lot of excitement about that. Like anxiety, it's been sold out for months.
Wow.
And yeah, it has the heated rivalry writer there.
Oh,
It has the Project Hail Mary. Andy Reid is going to be there.
Pretty
And
much every
there's
romantasy
yeah,
author you can shake a stick at,
oh, sure,
to the
yeah,
point
yeah.
where like it is creeping into even my Instagram reels where people
Mhm.
are like, I'm a New Yorker. I love books. Here's my advice for you when you're coming to BookCon. Don't walk
Wow.
three abreast on the sidewalk, etc., etc.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, but I Facebook feed is like, is it safe? Is it safe? I've heard it's so dangerous outside the
well,
Javits.
well,
And
I will say, don't come in through the backside of Penn Station. Take don't don't right around the backside of Penn Station is literally the worst part of New
it's
York.
across the street from Moynihan. It's fine. It's fine. That's it. Don't scare the people, Kate. Come
It's
on.
look,
It's fine.
I will self-disclose. I worked at a drug rehab 2 blocks away. I know of which I speak. You and I, we don't care if we pass a few people who are homeless or have a drug problem. We understand. But if you're from, I don't know, Connecticut, it might be traumatizing. That's all I'm saying.
I
But it's
mean,
safe.
Keep your
It's
wits
just
about you. You'll be
you will
okay.
be safe.
Yeah.
don't buy those CDs. That's the one thing that are a real scam, and they guilt you into it. Anyway, BookCon, also Bix Brooklyn Independent Comics Expo is this weekend. Exact same. I think I'm going to go one day to BookCon, the next day I'll probably go day one to BookCon because I got to see the dawn of the new era here. And then Bix, so huge, really great show. It's at Industry City in Brooklyn. But
I love
there's a
Industry City.
return of a show coming, the Bodega show, right? Christian, did you cover that? What can you tell us about Bodega?
Yeah, yeah. So, it's a new Brooklyn Comics Festival, or new Comic Con coming to Brooklyn. This November will be the kind of inaugural edition of this version of a Brooklyn Comic Festival. It's kind of headed by James Tynion the Fourth, who we all hear about so much these days. And it's got this clever kind of, speaking of, we've been talking about branding a lot. It's got some clever branding. It's trying to lean into uh what people associate with Brooklyn. So it's here I'll have to pull up the exact, but like they've created the name such that it's an acronym Bodega, um and various things within that. There's a BEC, like a bacon, egg, and cheese. And it's both, an artist alley, an exhibit for artists, but we'll also have um there's like some kind of prize. That's what I'm pulling up right now.
Oh yeah, and I should point out that it is also Gabe Fowler is involved in this, and
Yes.
Gabe was the guy who behind the well now Cab Comic Arts Brooklyn. Because there was a couple different versions. So Cab was the super indie show that was ended by the pandemic, and everybody's been like, Gabe, when do you bring it back? But he's like, I can't do it alone. So he's sort of involved. I think he's doing the programming. So it's a little bit of the same vibe,
Yeah,
I think, kind
it's
of
an
a little
inheritor.
Yeah,
inheritor. Yes,
right.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
It's
so let me just read a couple of these. So it's like, yes, there will be a Bodega Comic Arts Trophy, aka CAT, like you might find in a bodega, honoring
mm,
standout publications, that are exhibiting there. They're launching a like zine that will go along with the con, called the Brooklyn Annual of Graphically Elevated Literature, aka Bagel, another thing you might get. So yeah, there's a couple other people involved. Bryce Gold, who was head of content at Comixology and worked at Kickstarter. Christina Lee, Courtney Menard. A couple comics
mm,
people involved in making it happen. It's not
mm.
just Tinian, but
Well, I will say about Tinian, this is not new for him, and it's not just like random self-aggrandizement. Like he was a big force recently helping promote and helping fund Fire Fest, well, not Fire Festival.
Fire. Yeah, FlameCon,
FlameCon.
right? Yeah, yeah.
FlameCon.
Yeah,
Fire
yeah.
Festival's terrible. FlameCon's awesome. New
Yes, right.
York's Queer Comic Con. So he's a local boy. He
Yep.
really has put a lot of his own work and energy toward promoting the smaller convention scene in New York.
And his own
And
money.
yeah,
Just
and
to,
his own money. Like
yeah.
Yeah. So,
this is
he's a
typical for him.
seed.
And
I want to
we,
say he's a seed investor. I
Yeah.
don't know how much money this guy has, but I
I
think he's
don't think
giving
he's
him a
paying
little bit of a,
the whole
no,
con.
he's
he's
not,
helping,
nah,
Just
but
wanted to
he's,
add
but
like
but he's throwing
yeah.
his name behind it,
putting his
which is a
name there.
big
He's
part
also
of it.
putting some amount of money behind it. So he's putting his he's
Yeah, he's
putting
putting his money
the
where his mouth is.
So,
exactly.
so
He's walking the walk.
there's a lot going on in the con world, including the return of really crappy cons. But I want to jump over that because I think it's much more interesting to talk about another topic that we had on here, which is the kind of the creator, the creator economy. I think
Yeah.
Christian, you also talked to Eric Harburn, who is the editor at Tiny Onion, and he got like promoted, and just the kind of the energy there. You also talked to to the creators of Wild
Yes.
Signal, and can you tell us about those and kind of what there seems to be a little bit of an energy
Yeah.
that's
So
cool.
this is really interesting. So I was interviewing the Wild Signal guys, Mike Roush and Ronald Wimber, the great Ronald Wimberly, about Wild Signal. I was getting this news about Eric Harburn's promotion at Tiny Onion, Tinian's kind of studio, and that promotion is all being present. He's I believe the promotion is that he's now editor in chief of Tiny Onion, but their statements about it are very clear that this is with an eye not just to continuing to develop great comics, but also headlining the adaptations of
Mm.
some of these comics and trying to Tinian has a quote in the story we wrote about that, about trying to keep their hand on their babies, and that whoever's involved in adapting some of these Tiny Onion hits, like Something is Killing the Children and stuff like that, should be someone who's been working on these titles all along.
Mm.
Wild Signal is starting out with somewhat humbler ambitions. Obviously, they haven't been going for a couple years like like Tiny Onion, but um, they are looking to help artists, both comics people, writers and artists like Ronald, but also musicians, directors, animators. Mike Rauch, the other founder, his background is in animation at Cartoon Network and stuff. And I think it's really interesting to talk about this stuff in light of the Marvel layoffs and Boom restructuring and AI stuff that we started out with, where it's just like, well, the kind of field of corporate entertainment is certainly going through some kind of change right now. That's not like the most secure place to do the kinds of work you want to do, or even be guaranteed the resources that you think you should be entitled to. And so it's just interesting to see these two different stories, that I was working on within days of each other, different companies, um, but are both about, can we make our own work? Can we do this in such a way that it's sustainable, that it like
Mhm.
gives us the money to keep going? So, Wild Signal, they have lots of plans, only some of which they would tell me about. Their first project is like, oh, they put together a vinyl soundtrack for this micro budget animated movie, Boys Go to Jupiter, that came out last year. I remember.
Yeah, just say from Julian Glander, who's like fantastic. He's
Yeah,
such a
exactly.
his look. He has this incredible day glow, kind of like bubble. It's sort of like Peter Max comes through time and is reimagined for the 21st century,
Hell
but more
yeah.
so. He's great.
Yeah.
He's really great.
And so they were like, okay, and here's a guy who made his own thing, this animated movie with a micro budget, with even though there's some names on it, Cola Scola did a voice, people like that. And they're like, okay, well, here's a guy who has a vision, who has a passion. What's something he wants to do that he didn't have the resources to do? Oh, music is a big part of this movie. Let's partner with him. Let's put out a limited run of a vinyl soundtrack of this movie. So that's their first thing they've done. I think they're working on more records, also working on zines, some comics. They've got a couple, I think at least like maybe half a dozen things they're meaning to roll out over the course of the year. And not all of them are going to be, say Something is Killing the Children, or these comics that come out of something like Tiny Onion, and then suddenly you're hearing about them everywhere. They just wanted to, make art outside of kind of the corporate bureaucracy while also having an understanding of how stuff is made. Ronald, has the artist's perspective, but he also knows publishing because he's worked in various ways with those. Mike has kind of the corporate producer. He knows how that stuff happens. Um, and just trying to make the kind of art they want to make, other like-minded artists help them make the stuff they want to make, and do it in such a way that it's within their resources and in a sustainable um, kind of economic gain. And that's a lot of what they told me. So and I see
But
the vision.
yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting that these, smaller creator-driven projects are happening, and they seem to have, Ronald's been around a long time. We've talked about to him many, many times here on More to Come, and but he just keeps up putting these interesting projects like Lab, that was this
Yeah,
comics newspaper,
right.
and so on. And but that have look, it's super important because a lot of creative people don't have a business bone in their body.
Yeah, right.
And it seems like both of these have at least a strong business um, person involved. And look, that's super important because the business is the engine, or
Yeah.
that helps the wheel that helps us go. But look, I said this a billion times on this podcast, and with all we're talking about AI, all this stuff, you know, it's always the human factor. It's
Yeah.
always the human inspiration. Like people are fascinated by some of these AI things, like the vegetable people and all that.
Oh
But
no.
it's a novelty. We're not going to go that way. It's a
Right.
novelty. It's human to human that
AI Fruit
humans
Love
like.
Island.
No,
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
don't
That's
tell
a
me more
real,
about the AI
that's
videos.
all you need to know. It's a real thing, and that's what it is.
yeah. Well, we're not going to promote that. What we are going to say
Yeah.
is a couple of other important projects
Yes.
that along the same lines. Niobe, the independent comic that's been around for a long time. They just got an animation deal, and
Right.
so
The
it's really
creator
great to see
is
that.
Sebastian Jones, and his
Mhm,
comic comes out from Stranger Comics. And so it's part of the larger Untamed universe. Um,
mhm.
that's going to be a problem for them if they keep that as the title of the animation,
Oh,
because there's a couple different TV shows with that name that have come out in the last few years, and they're
what
both popular.
Untamed?
But yeah.
Untamed?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
Untamed. The book con Untamed.
Well,
Eh,
don't get me started. Anyway,
yeah.
so I mean, Niobe is something that I think would make a great animated adaptation, but is not something I would have thought would get the corporate dollars because it is basically African-inspired high fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm all for. It's
Right.
awesome, but
Right.
they've got themselves a deal
Hell yeah.
in collaboration with Viola Davis and
Hey.
Mhm.
Julius Tenen's Juvie Productions. So they're getting an anime out of it, and I'm
Yeah,
psyched.
yeah. I think that's really great. Another really great project that we love here that is also got an animation deal is Monstress, which I think, Christian,
Yes.
you're a big fan of, right?
Basically, my favorite comic is what I say about it, or at least my favorite modern ongoing one, as long as
Yeah.
it's ongoing. And so I love Monstrous so much. I had actually missed this when this news first broke at the end of March. Um, it sounds so cool to me, and like Monstrous is so dense, it's so interesting. It has such a kind of um another high fantasy world, alternate kind of history kind of world. There's so many different elements to it. I've spent years telling all the like fantasy fans in my life, oh, you got to read this. But then it's kind of this dense thing that to me has always screamed out for a bigger platform, another medium, a kind of adaptation. The comic, like I said, is my
And
favorite comic.
I mean, this is a crazy thing to
Mhm.
say about a comic, but it's so visual.
Yes.
So visual.
Mhm.
I mean,
Right.
comics are, but like
The
it,
level of details,
the
like,
level of details, a lot of the characters don't talk a lot.
yes, including the main character, often doesn't have a lot to say.
I mean,
Exactly.
listen,
And so you
it's a
see it in the art. And so that
Yeah,
makes it perfect for animation as opposed to live action.
It
totally.
is a
And
perfect, and I just want to call out Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. Marjorie Liu, obviously very well known, writer of prose and comics, but Sana Takeda, really amazing Japanese artist. But yeah, you're right. They have a fantastic collaboration. Like they just work
Totally.
together so well.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
Sana is, what's crazy about Monstress, one of the ways I try to describe it to people to get them interested, to talk about all the different kind of visual elements that are layered on top of each other. Like, okay, well, it's steampunk, and on top of that, some characters are Miyazaki characters, like this little fox girl who's so cute, and some characters are Lovecraftian monsters, and yet they exist side by side in the same panels. They look different, but it all makes sense, and so. That's a tribute both to Marjorie's incredible world building and thinking. This Monstress, it's clearly like I'm sure anybody listening has read maybe her prose, maybe some of her Marvel Comics runs over the years. I really feel like it's all in Monstress. Like that's like all
Monstress is definitely her magnum opus so
totally
far.
exactly. Thank
mm,
you. Um,
yeah.
and but also. Sana, I hope that she will have a big role, I assume, in an animation adaptation. And maybe that's a good way to jump to artists are once again kind of having
Well,
signature styles
we're
in comics.
out of time. See, here's the thing with this podcast. If we go over an hour, it's like crossing the streams. You can't do it. It's like one of the things,
Well,
like
if we go too far over an hour, I whack it in half, and Heidi doesn't like that
yes, I
because
don't like that.
because backstage we tend to get technical difficulties with the PW tech side if our
But
podcasts get
we
too long,
but we
which is
are
no bad thing
revamping.
because it keeps us from talking forever.
Yes,
But
that's
if we
true. And
keep talking for a
look,
while,
we do not believe in the 3 hour podcast here at
Yeah, I
Mordecai.
like that.
if we need to,
Yeah.
we whack it in half.
Okay. Well, then you know what?
We're reporters,
Let's
Heidi.
do.
We give people what they need. We don't just
That's true.
drone
You have
on
enough time.
forever.
You listen to this for an hour. You're on the elliptical. You walk to the elliptical. You walk to the gym. You get on the elliptical. You walk home. You've heard our podcast. That's
Right.
what we have
And
fun.
and you don't hear 20 minutes about us talking about what we ate yesterday.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
although I could do that also. But well, you know what? Let's talk about it a little bit. But let's jump in since we spent 5 minutes talking about it. Um,
I can
there
always
was a
lift
big
this out of the
there
audio
was a
version.
big story at well, we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do Stars and Stripes and we're out, okay?
Yeah.
But there was a big story in the Hollywood Reporter that by Boris Kitt that was like, these artists are great. Have you heard? Greg,
Heard of this Nick
or
Dragata guy? Yeah.
yeah, it's Nick Dragata who does Ultimate Batman Ultimate Batman is pretty great. And then this other guy, this Daniel Warren Johnson guy, he's really good too. And Jim Lee is quoted as saying, it's really great to have artists back. It's really good for the industry. And but this is a direct, even though as silly as it sounds, there has been a policy at Marvel and DC since the 90s to lessen the role of artists and to promote the role of writers because of what happened with the Image founders. They were promoting the artists. The artists said, "Hey, we're making millions of copies. We're going to do our own thing," and they did send millions of copies. And now we have Image Comics. So this, as I said in my piece, I was not in the room, but I've heard this many times, and it absolutely has been. You will notice Marvel does not promote their artists at all.
It's not nice.
And so DC
and there was often a trend where anytime an artist would break out, I remember a recent example, Pepe Larraz on House of X. Nobody's ever heard of this guy. Suddenly he's doing the big X-Men reboot and it looks freaking awesome. And then guess what? He only does another X-Men comic or two after that because very quickly Mark Miller brings him up as he did to a lot of these artists, would be like, hey, how about I actually like pay you a lot of money like Marvel and DC isn't doing. And so these guys would get paydays, but then they would go be making these comics that weren't read as much or weren't in the zeitgeist as much.
But on the other hand, that some of these comics might be their chance at having some stake in something creator owned.
Totally, exactly.
Yeah.
So it totally made sense, but it was just I feel like that was my experience.
Their big Q career was being cut short because of this policy. And I think
but it wasn't even the policy, just to be clear. It was the fact that they did not, like, Marvel has been so cheap for so long.
Yeah.
And there might be a handful of artists, and I would have to look them up to see who they are, that they are paying like super competitive rates. But an unknown like Pepe Larraz coming up, becoming really well known, they are not going to pay him the rates he's going to get, even if he goes to DC. DC is much
Right.
better about keeping their rates competitive.
And you would see
Yeah.
people switch these artists switching back and forth over the
Yeah.
years, you know.
And I think also another element to it is writing is less time consuming than doing a full comic
Of course.
spread. And so if you are trying to promote someone and getting the most out of them for your money and getting the most books out of them that you can, your promotion dollars, if you're Marvel, go further with a writer who might stick around because they can write you 3 books. And then you also have 3 books with their name on it that you can sell.
Right.
And I think this is short-sighted because much as I love writers, artists are awesome too, but I can see the like twisted corporate logic that led them to do it.
Right.
Yeah, but all the great comics are a fantastic collaboration. Like we were just saying
Yeah,
with
they have to
Monstress.
be. They have to be. It's so important.
Yeah, and um, we have seen like Oni has been
Hmm.
their recent executive suite of Hunter Goranson and editor in chief Sierra Hahn. They've been very open, saying like we're trying to promote artists. We're trying to to make the art stand out and hire people and which is like, well, that's crazy talk. But I mean, a lot of people found this story a little bit risible because cuts are all about the art, but it was a really strong signal that DC in particular is like, yeah, did you hear these artists are pretty good? Like people like this art, and I had the best quote ever by Nick Dragotta, where it's like, what's the biggest change in your life, and he says money, because the aftermarket for them is also so huge with their selling their original art, and they are doing signings. They're now people are charging for autographs, which is, we could do a whole show about that, but the con experience.
You do what you got to do to make money
That
to live.
Yeah, but there's so many, and then they're doing Kickstarters for their art books and making tons of money. So there's just so many other. I mean,
Revenue
I feel
stream.
like
Yeah.
yeah, so
Like,
many revenue streams, and I feel like we're a little bit despairing here, or at least like oh, this AI tide, this stockholder is running everything. It's sad, but there's still a lot of tools to fund creators as long as you connect with your audience.
right. And
Yes.
also, like, where are these conflicting opinions coming from? We're hearing all this promotion of AI and stuff from the corporate class, from these executives who see us all as disposable. But what you're seeing with something like Absolute Batman, and I just think that story's kind of interesting because obviously it's in the Hollywood Reporter. So if you're a comics person, you know how comics work. You've been to comic signings and Comic Cons. You read this piece where they're explaining all that, and you're kind of like, yeah, I know all that. But the fact that it's like Absolute Batman is so big that it's now getting a big feature in the Hollywood Reporter and stuff, and they're
I,
talking about
I mean, honestly, given that Warner Brothers may or may not get bought,
right,
um, I can see that they would be like, "Oh, please put something like this in a industry publication where some like entertainment corporate goon who otherwise wouldn't know about this might see it and be like, "Oh, yeah, this is good. We should pay that artist."
right. Fair enough. But I guess like the other part of that story is that it just comes from, yeah, people want Nick Dragotta art and Daniel
They
Warren
do.
Johnson art, and that's coming from actual people and readers and the audience and stuff who want a
Mhm.
distinctive art style by an individual artist that they can recognize.
Yes.
And that is, those aren't those people lining up for Nick Dragotta aren't the ones going like, I love AI, put AI in everything.
Right.
That's coming from, the
Yeah, those are conflicting forces. They're not the
exactly.
same. Um, I will say, I think going back to what we were saying about some of the staleness at Marvel, maybe that's where some of it comes from. If you're
Yeah.
losing a lot of your superstar artists, that's
Well,
part of the comic.
I will say, even though he's been gone for 6 years, I will say this was also a little bit of a little teeny snipe at the former DC editor-in-chief publisher Dan DiDio, because
I
Dan
hate him. I hate him so much.
So
Not on a personal level, on a professional level.
Yes, on a professional level. But Dan had very strong ideas about what should be a house style at DC, and he really did read. And listen, I was saying, but I mean, it's like, do you like Gary Frank or not? Gary Frank is a fine cartoonist, good storyteller.
Stuff,
yeah. I mean,
well, I'm not saying that what he liked was bad. It's just that what he kept out was also good, right?
But I'm also like, Ivan Reis and Gary Frank can make that style very exciting and accessible. Right. A lot of people imitate it. It's just dull.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that was a whole era where there was very much a house style at DC. And so I think this is also kind of a, hey, it's great when people just draw these crazy things, isn't it? So listen, we are running way over, and will be more to come. I mean, listen, Christian, it's really been great having you on here and getting your input on all this stuff.
And I'll just throw in
the but there's one more story. We have one
it can
more
be brief.
Story. Yes.
So we're going over to the world of military, but this is relevant to comics because you see, Stars and Stripes, the publication for U.S. military personnel, has itself a little problem in that their readers really want their comics back, their comic strips, because the Secretary of Defense made a policy absolutely prohibiting Stars and Stripes from using any quote-unquote news stories, features, syndicated columns, comic strips, and editorial cartoons from commercial news media. So now people are writing letters to the editor. Stars and Stripes personnel are not thrilled. Our military personnel would really like their comics back. Please give our military personnel their comics back.
Given that I'm unconvinced that Pete Hegseth can even read, I'm almost like surprised at such a policy from him.
I think it might be that some people feel that anything that doesn't come directly from the military might be ideologically suspect. But I think that that's a ridiculous thing to apply to Saturday morning, or Sunday morning, full color cartoons in your paper. Come on,
I don't
guys.
think it's Dennis Camp's Ultimates in there.
No, no, it's going to be in there. It's going to be like Chickpea Lane. Come on, guys.
Or what's the one with the
Nancy
Fred Bassett? Yeah,
Fred Bassett.
Okay?
Come on.
Which is, by the way, a very right-wing comic. And so fine, let them read their freaking Fred Bassett, or
give them the Beetle Bailey.
Okay. Yeah, give them the Beetle Bailey. Give them the Beetle Bailey. Well, more to come on that. So, but anyway, listen, Christian, again, thank you for dropping in on such short notice, and, helping us out here. And, we will be continuing to experiment with our format, our timing. But I think, Kate, I just think this is a gigantic 2-page list of the stories we're talking about. And it didn't even all fit on 2 pages. So I think we got
through a lot.
We got through a lot, but I think we got to do it regularly again. What do you think?
Hey, I've been pushing for it. Let's do it.
Well, Tiny's crazy schedule.
Yes, I know. But there will be
more
to
come.